My Little Pony is coming out with a new trading card game starting off in China this month on the 26th of April and on May 3rd of 2025. We're going to learn more about this game probably literally the next day as of recording this, so this video might be outdated by the time it comes out. If it is, I'll probably just scrap it and replace it with an updated version or something like that. But for now, we don't know a whole lot about this game. We have the whole press release here. It's talking about like the game, but it doesn't actually explain how the rules are. Here's some nice high definition images of some of the cards and different material like that. Equestria Daily talked about it briefly, but again, we don't know how the game works or anything like that. Here's some more stuff. There's more shots, some more images we got. Now, I would go and translate these, but these are just character cards, which don't seem to have any kind of game rules or anything like that to them at all. These are literally just character cards. We can tell because they don't have the numbers on the top left or bottom right, which we know the character cards have, because if we come here and look at this, this is a main character card and doesn't have anything special about it, but the actual character cards do have a number on the top left and bottom right. That is important for the game. Right before I sat down to record this, we did get this new information right here, which actually has an updated image of the game. We can see a little bit more of this card here, for example. We can see some cards here that are turned sideways and some information here and stuff like that. It seems like they're running a Rainbow Dash deck or something like that. Outside of that, it's just a bunch of images of the event. We didn't get very good images of like the cards. I don't know why we're not getting images of the cards and like the game mat and stuff like that. I don't know what's going on with that, but there is definitely some stuff we can learn from this. But before we get into that, I have to do the classic YouTuber thing and beg you for your subscription.
Please, please, I'm begging you, please subscribe, please. I need this. Please subscribe. Damn it, please.
Alrighty, so I put together this document here of all of the images, the translations, and my own thoughts about the game based on those images and translations. First of all, here is the game mat. Now this is just my interpretation of what everything is, because if you actually look here, this is one of the images we got. This is just that same image, but it doesn't have all of the text on it. These text, of course, is my own text. My guess as to what everything is based off of the translations that we've got in other cards. So this card right here is most likely your main character, which is just active, it's just always face up. It doesn't do anything special. It's probably meant to show you what kind of deck your opponent's running, possibly. It doesn't seem to actually do anything, especially since when translating it, it literally just says the name of the character on it. There's a story area here. I assume this is the story area because this is where these story cards go, and I know that because you can see that the story cards are right here at the top. As you can see, these are clearly story cards. If we compare that to this right here, which definitely looks like the same card, you can tell that these are definitely the story cards. This area right here are definitely scene cards 100%, because again, these look like scene cards, and if we compare them to the scene cards over here, it looks exactly the same. It actually might be that same exact scene card in that picture right there. They have 3 copies of it, which is very interesting. But that means this is most likely the scene area, this is most likely the story area, this is most likely some kind of discard pile, and this is most likely your main deck. And it seems to be that there is a second deck you have, another scene deck, which is very strange. I've not seen something like this before in this. Based off of my own interpretation of what the scene cards are going to be, this is a very interesting mechanic possibly, but we'll get into that later when I go through my final thoughts. But this seems to be the main thing, an adventure area here and everything like that. Now, what I did is I translated from cropped versions of this image here, and I got this card here. The Twilight seems to have this ability to turn over the top card of the deck, and if it's an event card, you draw 2 cards, which is interesting because we don't actually, as far as I know what the heck an event card is. It may be talking about a story card or a scene card, and it could be some kind of bad translation, but an event card is a new type of card I don't think we've seen yet and know about yet, so that's kind of an interesting thing there. Probably a bad translation. It probably means something different. This Fluttershy one is too tiny on the actual card print, so I had to copy the actual text onto Discord and then take a screenshot of that. But it says a character who enters our adventure zone gains +2 inspiration this round, which obviously there's some bad translation here too. It most likely says it gains +2 inspiration whenever a character enters your zone this turn or something like that. Or unless they really do just go off of rounds or something. And then Pegasus Aurora is most likely Pegasus Fluttershy or something to that effect or something like that, because from the other translations, like this Twilight Sparkle one here, this says Twilight Sparkle right underneath it. Now this text is tiny, so I had it written over here as well. As long as the number of events in my rest area is greater than or equal to all character inspirations in my adventure area plus 1. So I don't know what that's about either. I couldn't really get a good translation on the Rainbow Dash, the rarity, or most of the other pictures in that image there. But moving on, I took these 6 images, which was just one image we got all together, and I translated all of it at the same time just to see what would happen. And I got a handful of different things here. One saying that you can choose a character in the dialect area to gain +2 inspiration this round. Most likely, dialect area is a mistranslation. It most likely means something else. I'm not 100% sure what it would be, but most likely that was a mistranslation. The next one says, when distributing points, give +2 inspiration to a character holding an item in the area. This is interesting too, because this implies that there's items in the game as well. There's another card later that mentions props as a thing, and it's probably the same thing. So it's either going to be a prop or an item kind of card there. Another one says, in the language area, again, most likely mistranslated to something else, but one character gains +1 inspiration this round. All characters in the area with the thirst power requirement less than or equal to 1 or removed from play. This most likely, thirst is most likely a mistranslation, but if it's my guess, it's most likely saying like if the cost is less than 1 or something like that, it's just removed from play. Everything that's like that has like a value of 1 is just removed from play. That's probably what that actually does. So I translated all of them together, and I got this big mess. It even has like the copyright stuff in it, so it wasn't good. So what I did next is I actually took each of those cards, cropped them, and did them individually, and I got some new things. Rainbow Dash is 4, which is the value on the top left. CCT specifically removes character from the area whose demand for harmonious power is less than or equal to 1 in dialects. Again, dialects is most likely a mistranslation, or maybe I'm misunderstanding what the heck a dialect is, because that is that's like a language type thing, right? And that doesn't seem to translate with this game. That doesn't seem like a language would make sense for this game. But either way, harmonious power is very telling as well. This is most likely the cost or possibly the strength of the card. We'll get into that in my final thoughts later as well, but that is interesting too. Rarity says one character in the rumor making zone gains +1 inspiration this turn according to the angle instrument rarity. Again, very poorly translated, but at the bare bones of it, we can assume that it's talking about some kind of specific zone, and cards in that specific zone get a +1 inspiration this turn, and it may have some kind of cost or some kind of requirement, not an angle instrument, obviously, but something special. Maybe if it's turned sideways or flipped face down or something like that, maybe something happens. Maybe it has to be a rarity card that gets the effect. I don't know. This is definitely weirdly translated, but 100% it seems that the core of this card, you're getting +1 inspiration for cards in a specific zone. This is the Pinkie Pie here that says props. It says characters with props and this is just impossible for me to describe, have an inspiration +2. Again, I don't know what it is about these translations, but this is clearly not the name of an area or a zone or anything like that. This is very badly translated. I tried multiple different ways to translate this, and it just kept giving me this specific translation. So I don't know what the heck happened with this Pinkie Pie card, but it's wild, it's crazy. But moving on, I tried a new translator, and I got some slightly different results from some of them, but I still didn't get any results from the Twilight or the Applejack, which is very interesting. This one says, during the holiday, Feng Rong gives a character in the area +2 this turn. Feng Rong is probably a mistranslation for Fluttershy or some other card or something like that. Maybe this is a specific Fluttershy. Maybe it's like Wild Woods Fluttershy or something, and for some reason it translated to that. Now the holiday thing is interesting too, because some of the other cards mention days and stuff like that, and so I wonder if this was just a bad translation for the word day or something like that. Fluttershy, her new translation says a character in the fake area gains +2 inspiration this round. Again, mentioning an area that doesn't seem to exist. Rarity saying one character in the pass energy zone gains +1 inspiration this round. So again, my assumption earlier seems to have been correct, where it's a zone that gets +1 inspiration this round, but it still doesn't seem to know based off the translations. And again, these images are very blurry, so I'm really impressed with Google Translate. If you don't know, all I did is take Google Translate and went to images and then just put in the image, and then it just put it there, and then I would download the image or I would copy the text, and put that on there or whatever. But anyway, moving on to Pinkie Pie, the Japanese party has a character with the same name, character inspiration +2. I don't even know where to begin with this. Most likely it's like if your opponent has a character with the same name as this card, you gain +2 inspiration or something like that. That's most likely what that means. I have no idea though. The amount of work in the ease or in the case is greater than or equal to 2/6 of the 2 days. The Twilight card just could not translate. It had the worst blurring, honestly, out of all the cards besides Applejack. So it was impossible to translate. I really, even now, I have no idea what this could possibly mean. But moving on, Rainbow Dash, all characters in the opponent's adventure zone whose peace power requirement is less than or equal to 1 enter the field. There's 2 numbers on every card. There's one in the top left and one in the bottom right. And this peace power requirement is probably the top left one, and it's probably the value you need to play the card, and it's probably saying if all the cards in your hand that have are less than or equal to 1 just straight up into the field. Like you can just put all of them in your hand onto the field or something like that. And that's maybe the case. If so, that could be possibly a very powerful card. Who knows? But either way, let's move on to my final conclusions here, because I do have a couple of final conclusions here, a couple of things I want to talk about, because I think I can kind of piece together a little bit more of this game based off of all those translations we saw, based off of everything we've seen so far in the game. So here are my final conclusions. The game seems to feature a lot of areas, but we have 4 confirmed types of cards: the main character, the scene, the story, and the character cards. Those are the 4 main confirmed ones. We can see that here. If I zoom out here, you can see we have a main character card, a scene card, a story card, and a character card. These are the only confirmed cards we have so far. However, it does seem like there are going to be other card types, such as a prop or item card. I say that because there's a couple of cards that actually mention it. Pinkie Pie, for example, mentions it, and then when I translated that huge text with a bunch of characters, it also mentioned an item. So most likely, this is something that might act like an equipped spell card from Yu-Gi-Oh! Or something like that, or an artifact or something like that, or an artifact equipment from Magic the Gathering or something like that. So it might work like that. So there is probably going to be other types of cards. Some of the cards also mentioned event cards, which also isn't a confirmed card type either, so there could be event cards as well that are coming to the game, which may act like spells or traps or instants and sorceries like Magic and Yu-Gi-Oh! And stuff like that. Now, if I had to guess, the inspiration, which a lot of the cards reference, is most likely the strength of the card, and I would guess it's probably the bottom right number. It could also be a resource, but it almost always refers to another character when referencing the inspiration, and it's often worded like how Magic the Gathering cards are, where it says card gets +1/+1 or +2 or something like that, right? So that is most likely what the inspiration is. It's most likely the strength of the card, which is going to determine whether or not it beats another card. Also, the character cards have 2 numbers on them, like I mentioned a couple of times already. One is in the top left and one is in the bottom right. There are 2 different likely candidates of what's happening here. Either one of them is a cost and the other is strength or inspiration, however they call it. This could also, however, be a strength and power thing like in Magic the Gathering. The thing I'm going with here is that the number in the top left is most likely the cost to play the card, and the number in the bottom right is the inspiration, the value, the strength of that card. That is what I'm guessing. However, like I said, it could be a strength and power thing like in Magic the Gathering. Now, some cards refer to days, which could be badly translated, but what if days are turns? My guess is that each day in the game is probably going to refer to turns as days or something like that. Maybe every single day you have to flip over one of your story or scene cards or something like that, most likely your story cards, and these could possibly change goals with rewards for completing them, and by completing them, you collect that card as a reward, sort of. And the goal is probably to complete all of the stories. So you're most likely competing to try and accomplish the story by doing all of the quests on the story cards that you get maybe at the beginning of the game or something like that. And once you do, you get them as a reward, and if you complete all your story before your opponent, then you just win or something. That is probably what's happening here. Now, there seems to be another area that character cards can be in. I say that because a lot of the cards just mention a lot of areas that just don't seem to exist, like the Japanese party or or the whatever district. I can't even say it. I would think it's the story area I listed at the beginning, just because there are face down cards there that don't have the same back as the other deck. If we go back to the initial image, this one here, you can see that there are cards face down on top of the story cards which is interesting because it's strange. Maybe it's to make it so that your opponent doesn't know what story cards you have or something like that. But it is interesting because there's cards on top of it. This could be characters that you have placed here previously and you're waiting to play into the adventure zone to do something. Or maybe cards are resting here because some of the other cards also mention resting as well. Maybe you're supposed to send your characters here to take part in the story or something like that. Maybe the adventure zone is the adventure zone definitely is where this game's version of combat takes place. Cards here most likely can attack other cards in the opposing adventure zone. At least one card mentions a rest area. Like I said earlier, this could be just your discard pile, honestly, but it could also be the cards in that story area. These could be where your cards are going. Maybe after you attack or something like that, they have to go to a rest area and you have to put them onto one of your stories or something like that. Maybe you have to put them on one of your scenes, something to that effect, and they're unusable until they finish resting. That could be a thing, but also it could just be the discard pile. Now, some cards in the scene area are turned sideways, implying that there is a tapping system, probably similar to mana in Magic the Gathering. The scene cards are probably just lands in that regard. Magic the Gathering has like a resource system. They're called lands. You put them down once per turn. You can tap them to play cards. The cards also say plan before their effect, which I've gotten from translations as well. This is most likely something like it might just say effect and it could be a mistranslation, but it also could be weird translation for tapping. This could be their answer to tapping, like in Magic the Gathering. You tap it to use the effect. That could be what it's talking about. If the scene cards are mana, however, then the person that's playing as Pinkie Pie in that original screenshot either cheated, lost scene cards somehow, or did something special to play this Twilight, since the only numbers on that Twilight card is 5, and they only have 3 scenes. If you look at this image here, they have 3 cards here. 2 of them are face down, one of those face down, one's sideways, and then they have a face up one. This Twilight that they have is this Twilight right here, which, as you can see, has a 5 in the top left and a 5 in the bottom right. This means if one of those numbers is the cost to play that card, this person either cheated, did something special to lower the cost for Twilight, or something else happened here, and maybe the cost isn't actually related to the scenes. Who knows? I have absolutely no idea. Very interesting. And I wrote this next part before I saw this post here where these are face up and also turn sideways. But they also might be able to be face up to do something extra special, since both players have face up cards in the area, but only the face down ones are tapped. It might be like a trade-off, like you can have them face down for resources or face up to get an effect. Now, I wrote that before I saw this post here. This post, they have 3 face up scene cards here, and all of them are tapped sideways, which means this theory seems to have been debunked. Unless you can still tap them sideways when they're face up, maybe you have to start with them face down or something like that, and then like when your turn starts, they get flipped face up or something like that. I have no idea. It is definitely a weird thing. Maybe like some of these scenes have effects and you want them to be face down so you can play them face down. So if you don't want the effect to be active, you can have them be face down or something instead. I have no idea. It's very interesting and very strange, but these are definitely tapped sideways here, which means this is most likely some kind of resource. Now, another thing too to note about their game mat here is there seems to be boxes in this adventure zone area that I mentioned before. On the original image, there is no such squares here. But there are exactly 3 cards here, so most likely you can only have 3 cards in your adventure zone at any time, so that's most likely a rule in this game. But if the scene cards are a resource, it's very interesting because, as you can see, it's a completely different deck. It's just a completely different deck, which means, unlike in Magic the Gathering, where you have to get lucky to draw a land card or something like that, it could be that every turn you get a scene card and a card from your main deck, or maybe you choose, or maybe the scene deck just makes the top card of that scene deck go straight into the scene area, face down, and maybe later you can flip it face up with some kind of special abilities or effects or something like that. Maybe it's just a game rule to flip it face up or something like that. There is a lot of speculation in this video, of course. I've put together everything I can, all the images I've seen. I've translated everything I possibly can. I don't know much more about this game than this. Hopefully you guys can help me out here. If you can read Chinese, maybe you could just translate these much better, and it would be a lot easier to learn the rules based off of that. And one more thing I want to note is that these cards seem kind of big, don't they? I don't know. They seem bigger than a Magic the Gathering card, or like a Pokemon card, or a Yu-Gi-Oh card, or something like that. Definitely larger than a Yu-Gi-Oh card. Yu-Gi-Oh cards are kind of small. Let me know what you think. If you can get access to these rules, if you have access to the game rules for this, please, please, please do share them to me because I really want to know how to play this game. I'm very interested. I love card games. I'm a huge card game nerd. I play a ton of different card games, and I've even made some card games before in the past. So definitely let me know what you think in the comments below, and until next time, please do consider liking, subscribing, sharing, and doing all of those wonderful things like that, because when you do wonderful things like that, not only do you get access to wonderful content such as this, but you also get to become wonderful yourself, and I think we all want that. So do those wonderful things, and until next time, stay wonderful.
This was very excruciating, so I hope it was worth it. Ugh.